Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you on Business Today Television in our ongoing series where we get you to meet the finest brains on the Lal Street. It's my pleasure to welcome Mr. Manish Sonthalia, Director and CIO at Emkay Investment Managers. Mr. Sonthalia is a very well-known face on the Lal Street. Over the last 3 decades, he's navigated bull markets, bear markets, and created immense wealth for his clients and shareholders, navigating with equal ease value and growth, with equal ease momentum, as well as times when the market remains extremely quiet. नमस्ते मनीष जी, a very warm welcome to you. स्वागत है आपका. और इस दौरान जब बाज़ार में बहुत ही मुश्किलों का दौर चल रहा है, ईरान और इज़राइल में लड़ाई चल रही है, फोर्थ क्वार्टर अर्निंग्स अब हम लोग देखना शुरू ही करेंगे. बताइए किस हिसाब से आप सेंटिमेंट को देख रहे हैं दलाल स्ट्रीट पर. कुछ अच्छा लगता हो, कुछ बहुत अच्छा लगता हो.
जी शैलेंद्र जी, धन्यवाद. सो आई थिंक फोर्थ क्वार्टर नंबर्स आ चुके हैं एंड उसके बाद हमारा एक रेट कट भी आया है आरबीआई का, जो कि बहुत ज़्यादा ही फ्रंट लोडेड रेट कट है और भयानक लिक्विडिटी का इन्फ्यूजन हुआ है, बेसिकली 100 बेसिस पॉइंट सीआरआर कट. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ तो बेटर देन एक्सपेक्टेड है फोर्थ क्वार्टर के. लार्ज कैप जो 1-2% की अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ एक्सपेक्टेड थी उससे बेटर है, 4-5% की अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ है. मिड कैप में भी 7-8% की अर्निंग्स ग्रोथ देखने को मिली. इवन स्मॉल कैप्स में ओवरऑल बेसिस पर नेगेटिव है, बट पिक एंड चूज करें तो जो मायने रखते हैं स्मॉल कैप, वो डिसेंट नंबर्स हैं. मार्केट्स में हमने करेक्शन देखा, करेक्शन के बाद एक अप मूव देखा. सो मेरा तो यही मानना है कि बेसिकली ये जो आरबीआई का कट हुआ है, रेट कट 50 बेसिस पॉइंट, जो एक्सपेक्टेड थे 25 बेसिस पॉइंट, और जो फ्रंट लोडेड लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन है, इससे एक एसेट प्राइस इन्फ्लेशन क्रिएट हो. कहने का ये मतलब है कि मार्केट जो है अपने फंडामेंटल्स को ओवरशूट करेंगे, क्योंकि लिक्विडिटी जो है बहुत ज्यादा ही लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन हुआ है और क्रेडिट ग्रोथ जो सिस्टम में होने की है उससे बहुत ज्यादा लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन है. सो इट विल ओवरडू अकॉर्डिंग टू मी. सो फंडामेंटली अगर आप देखें तो फंडामेंटल्स के हिसाब से 25,000 के लेवल्स मोटा मोटी सैली प्राइस्ड होते हैं फॉर द नेक्स्ट 6 मंथ और सो. बट चूंकि इतनी फ्रंट लोडेड रेट कट और लिक्विडिटी इन्फ्यूजन हुई है, मार्केट मेरे हिसाब से ऊपर की तरफ जाएंगे और थोड़े से एक्सेसेस क्रिएट करेंगे. और किन सेक्टर्स में बेसिकली एसेट प्राइस, ये रियल एस्टेट, ये कैपिटल मार्केट्स, सब एंटिटीज जो कैपिटल मार्केट्स में केटर करती हैं. फिर आपकी हो गई इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ट्रैवल, पीएसयू, बैंक्स पर्टिकुलरली, क्योंकि उनकी बॉन्ड पोर्टफोलियो काफी स्ट्रांग है और वो मार्क टू मार्केट होंगी जब इन्वेस्टमेंट गेन्स बुक होंगे और वैल्यूएशंस काफी सस्ते हैं. तो पीएसयूज एज अ होल, पीएसयू बैंक्स इन जनरल, बैंक्स, एनबीएफसीज, रियल एस्टेट, कैपिटल मार्केट, इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर, ट्रैवल, ये सब सेक्टर्स में मेरे हिसाब से लगता है कि एक आउट परफॉर्मेंस देखने को मिलनी चाहिए नेक्स्ट 3 से 6 महीने के लिए.
Manish ji, we've started on the front foot as far as this discussion is concerned, and with this background in mind, let us now analyze what else is happening in the market. I'll request the PCR to kindly fire the long-term chart of crude oil futures that we have upon us. Manish ji, in the last 1 month, 1.5 months, crude oil has gone up from $56 to $76, up 40% as far as crude oil prices are concerned. Because we import crude oil in such large quantities, do you think this will be an overhang on Indian equities, or we will digest this very well?
So Shailendra ji, basically there's slowdown in US, there is slowdown in China, and crude oil has a direct bearing on the total GDP growth of the globe, and GDP growth of the globe has come down to 2.3%. Having said that, this Iran-Israel war, basically what ramifications does it have for crude oil market and India in particular? See, we have stopped importing crude from Iran from 2020 onwards. We have alternatively supplied crude from Russia. So as far as our direct impact from, as far as supplies of crude from Iran is concerned, it's negligible. Given the overall demand-supply dynamics of the globe, it is very unlikely that crude will cross this $80 barrel, according to me. Of course, if there's prolonged conflict in the Middle East and other countries also join in, then maybe you'll see a flaring up of crude oil prices. That remains a risk. But as of now, it doesn't look like flaring beyond $80 per barrel. And as long as it is below $80 per barrel, I think India should be fine. There's not too much of a problem per se. And if it flares beyond that, then basically we'll be having a problem. In the event that this does not flare up, we are hearing about countries like Saudi, etc., pumping more oil in the global oil market to compensate their respective budgets in their respective countries. So I really don't think that crude oil is a worry just yet, but it is one variable that can flare up at any point in time. So we need to keep a tab on this variable. But that's the situation currently as we see the things unfold.
Okay. Now that the macro has been discussed, Manishi, let's drill down to your own portfolio. Emkay Investment Managers has 4 schemes. About 1800 crore rupees is invested over large caps, mid caps, a mid and small cap scheme as also the thematic sector. Manishji, how are you navigating the current market? Where are fresh inflows being deployed? Where do you think lies value at this point of time when the market is just about 1,000 points below its all-time high?
Yeah, that's the irony that in spite of all the problems in life, we have seen trade wars, we have seen currency wars, we have seen physical wars. We are seeing the market just about 4-5%, from the all-time high. So as they say, markets climb a wall of worry. Incremental capital, I think, is being deployed in the sectors that I alluded to at the beginning of this conversation. NBFCs, PSU banks, real estate, infrastructure, capital market, travel, hotels, QSRs. These are some of the spaces where I think incremental capital is being deployed.
Okay.
We have seen the fourth quarter 25 see very strong numbers come out of capital good defense railways. I think more or less it's broadly done given the overvaluation in some of these spaces. So these are the such spaces where we'll be slightly wary of in terms of deployment of fresh capital, but the incremental capital is being deployed in the sectors that I just mentioned.
Okay. When you are putting in fresh money in the sectors that you're looking for, in the sectors that you just mentioned, what are you choosing? Are you choosing growth? Are you choosing leaders in this space? Are you looking at value? How are you deciding where money goes into?
So in PSU banks, it's purely value. Value vis-a-vis growth. The value portion is quite significant when you compare it with the growth. In terms of real estate, it's to do with price inflation, asset price inflation. As I mentioned that the front-loaded rate cuts and the liquidity will boost asset prices significantly. And real estate broadly is a play on asset pricing. Growth is likely to come on top of the very strong volume growth that you're seeing in the MMR or the NCR regions. So that is a play on the asset price inflation. Discretionary spends because of income tax cuts, which have been promulgated from the current financial year. You should start to see the incremental benefits of discretionary spend come through. And, travel is a play on that. QSR is a play on that. So infrastructure would be a play on that, on the government spending piece. Capital market again is to do with increased activity on account of very benign liquidity that we are going to see and very low cost of capital. There is going to be a bit of asset price inflation that you're likely to see. So asset management companies, wealth management platforms, broking, mutual fund RTAs, these are the depositories, exchanges. These would be some of the plays that would again cater to the asset price inflation portion of the theme that we would be we would likely see in the coming days and months.
Okay, fair point. So, a deep value in PSU banks and price inflation in the real estate sector. Of course, travel, QSR hotels is discretionary spending. Uh, Manishji, you've been watching the defense space for quite a while. How are you reacting to this very sharp uptick in prices of all PSU defense counters? I remember you and I have had conversation on defense when many of these stocks that are now in the 5,000 rupee range were in low three digits. I mean, you and I remember Mazgaon Dock at 500 rupees. Now at 3,400, it's actually a split, 1:1. Similarly, for Hindustan Aeronautics, BEL, we have seen multiple splits, multiple bonuses, yet prices refuse to correct. For asset managers such as yours, how are you now playing this theme?
So, Sharanji, you are right. During the pandemic, you had the likes of Cochin shipyards and Mazgaon shipyard and BEL, all these trading at very ridiculous valuations, some single digit price earning valuation. Fast forward it to 2025, and we are looking at all these names trade at 70p, 50p, 60p. So I think those were the days of deep value, and today these are the days of extreme euphoria and fraud to be tread with caution. Of course, the world has changed. We are now seeing Operation Sindhu just got over or not yet over. You don't know. You have the rest of the world trying to put in 5% of their annual GDP into defense. NATO talks about 5% of Euro GDP to be put in defense. Similar is the narrative coming out of US, etc. China is in its own game. India, for the time being, is spending around 2%, 6,80,000 crores on defense spending earmarked for fiscal 25-26. Government has announced an emergency procurement of 40 to 50,000 crores post Operation Sindoor. So, in all probability, our defense budget is likely to go towards 2.5%. If this number was to get augmented further, then obviously you will be having all these defense PSUs go up even further, in spite of the fact that you will be treading in an area of overvaluation. So, because the turnover of most of these companies will come after a hiatus of 3-4 years. Secondly, is the problem of superlative margins which some of these companies are making. It's very difficult to assume that government of India, being the procurer of these arms and ammunition, will be allowing these defense companies to make supernormal margins. So I think there is this growth to be looked at with a pinch of salt, and given the overvaluation, it is to be looked into with a certain bit of skepticism. I would rather venture out into tier 2, which is tier 2 vendors, tier 3 vendors, rather than the tier 1 vendors, which are these headline PSU behemoths in the defense space, where to find some value. But that's about it as far as the defense play is concerned. The entire sector has got re-rated. But I would tread with caution in this space given the overvaluation.
Okay. I think that's very sensibly put. When you look at tier 2, tier 3, are there some such representations in the four portfolios that you oversee?
Yeah, there are. So many of this defense space is huge. The number of players that you have within the private sector space, catering to small areas of an entire defense value chain, are significant. It is, if you look around yourself, then you'll have many of these companies which do offer some value vis-a-vis growth. So yeah, I mean there are plays, and we have also been able to pick one or two within this entire space, which look not overvalued, which look reasonably valued, given the growth into the next 2-3.
Would you care to name, because they are a part of your portfolio, so there's no harm?
No, so I basically have one defense PSU, which is Mishra Dhatu Nigam. This again is very considerably valued when you compare it with its private peer counterparts. You know which names we are alluding to, but this titanium ingots which these guys make, and the entire valuation of this company. This is one company which I have in my portfolio, which looks reasonably valued vis-a-vis their private sector counterparts.
I don't know how to say this, but Mishra Dhatu hasn't, outperformed the market as Cochin, Garden Reach, Mazgaon or HAL have. So here's hoping that good luck begins from today and that you see deep value being exploding to, a momentum play as far as Mishra Dhatu is concerned, up 70% over the last 3 months or so. I am requesting the PCR to kindly show the long term chart of Mishra Dhatu. It's still to be a 2-3 bagger, but this is how it is. So this is where value resides at this point of time in defense. For those people who are watching us, maybe you need another independent view, and this could be a multi bagger from now on. Manish ji, to other parts of the sector and to the painful part, which is IT. People like us who sort of cut our teeth into tracking IT stocks in the late 1990s, this is a time to be slightly worried, because Infosys and TCS are growing below GDP rate. I never thought such a time would come. So cash rich companies with zero debt, phenomenal managements, great track records, now available at possibly low teens multiples. How is your portfolio reflecting this change, and how do you see IT over the next 2 years or so? Is this just a trading buy now, or do you see deep value?
I do see deep value. It's a contra buy for me. We are just marginally lower in terms of allocation than the Nifty 500 allocations to IT is representing. So the thesis is very, very simple, and it's to do with the fact that today the valuations of IT companies represent less than normalized growth that you have seen in previous crises for the IT space as a whole. So when we were in 2025 fiscal, that is to say second half of fiscal calendar 24, we were alluding to the fact that fiscal 26 Indian IT would be growing at 5 to 6% in US dollar terms. Then came the slowdown in the US, and chances of recession at one point in time became 70%. Then it has come down to 40%. Today, the IT company's representation of growth, of course, we are building in zero growth for fiscal 26, which was yesterday till about 3 months back, a 5% growth to be assumed in fiscal 26 has come down to 0% growth. But that is not to say that the growth is not going to come in fiscal 27. Assuming that previous crisis, we have had below normalized growth represented in the valuations of Indian IT companies. I would think that this represents deep value, a contra buying opportunity. And that is why we are buying IT in our portfolios, and we are keeping allocation somewhat underweight. But allocation is very close to the allocation that we are having in NSE 500, which is the broader market valuation on the benchmark. So we are taking a contra call on IT, and we are biased.
Okay. And what about the overall allocation within 1800 crore rupees? How is the broader allocation within your portfolios? Are you sort of more mid cap oriented, or how does it look?
So it depends on the mandate of the product. So a large cap product broadly would have 70% large caps. But rest of the three products would have broadly 2/3 allocation going to mid caps and small caps, and 1/3 going to large cap. So except for the product which is catering to the mandate of large cap, we are having 70% large cap. Rest of them would be catering to the mid and small.
Okay, fair point. So that's the overall theme that you are betting on. Manish, when you look at a multi-asset kind of a product, how are you allocating resources to precious metals? Gold has had its time under the sun. We've already hit 1 lakh rupees a tola. Silver is above a lakh per kilo. With those two precious metals, how do you think allocation for fresh funds should be?
So we don't run a multi-asset allocation fund, but suffice it to say, given that the US dollar would have a strong tendency to depreciate, given the problems around the rollover of debt, which is due to happen for them, the $36 trillion worth of debt, I would believe that the US dollar can depreciate 10% from here. And if
Really?
that, I mean, that is my assumption, given the problems around the economy. If that was to happen, then obviously bullion would tend to appreciate. And obviously gold and silver would be an important component out there. Even other base metal, other industrial metals like your copper, these could be some of the metals which would broadly be bullish in outlook over the next 1 year or so.
Okay.
I mean, that is my understanding.
For your benefit, viewers, I have put out the dollar chart, and it's already down 11% from its most recent high. And Manish ji is saying that you could see another 10% dip. Well, a 10% dip from 97 would bring it down to what, 87 or so. We are already at our worst since February 22. This is something that I was actually checking in the morning. And what, 87 would bring us to, well, that's a thing that we haven't seen for many, many years together. 87 brings us to 2014. Wow. And you see, you think, so gold and silver you think is a contra trade to, so it's a short dollar, long gold silver trade.
Absolutely. So I think individuals, in terms of wealth allocation to asset classes, I think 10 to 15% should be in bullion. You would have silver likely to outperform gold because the historical averages between silver and gold has been 65:1, or 1:65. And today that ratio stands at 1:100, ballpark, 1:100. So that ratio can improve to 1:65. Will give silver outperforming gold, but gold is also likely to do much better. So 10 to 15% of an individual's asset broadly should be in gold. A bit of asset allocation should be bonds or income funds, given that you'll have the interest rates go down in the system even further, could be, and the rest should be in basically your equities and real estate.
So Manish ji, it's a crisis of plenty, right? Equity is running fast. Gold and silver are trying to run even faster. Now with rate cuts, bond funds will outperform. मतलब ये तो बिल्कुल ही मानसून से पहले दिवाली आ गई.
Asset price inflation होगा शैलेंद्र जी because of plenty of liquidity and low cost of capital. जैसे कि आपने कहते हैं ना कि markets कभी भी equilibrium में नहीं रहता है. It overshoots or undershoots. Now is the time for the markets to overshoot.
तो कहाँ ले जा रहे हैं आप निफ्टी को?
I mean, hopefully we should be seeing markets crossing the previous highs quite soon.
सर previous high में तो कुछ बचा ही नहीं.
सर वो होने दीजिए, उसके बाद तो फिर you'll be in no man's land and you could see anything.
मेरे ख्याल से 2-4 लंबी सांसें आप दिलवा दीजिए तो 26,200 तो ऐसे ही आ जाएगा निफ्टी पे. चलिए 26,200 के बाद जुड़ेंगे, लेकिन फिर भी एक मापदंड, एक सोच, एक लेवल जो आप देखते हैं दिसंबर 2025 के आखिर तक.
शायद ऐसा है कि देखिए, मेरा जो तजुर्बा है लास्ट 25-30 इयर्स कि 25 का पी जो निफ्टी 50 पर है ना, वो थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट होता है सस्टेन करना. तो आप ये मान के चलिए कि नेक्स्ट 2 साल का जो एवरेज है वो 1250 का है. 1250 को अगर आप 25 से मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे तो वो एक थ्रेशोल्ड लेवल बनता है नेक्स्ट 6 महीने में. वो क्रॉस करना थोड़ा डिफिकल्ट होगा, पर वहां तक डेफिनेटली मार्केट जा सकता है.
अच्छा, 12.5 को गुणा करें 25 से, 28 आ गया
जी.
तो चलिए, तो 28,000 का निफ्टी, इसका इंतज़ार हम लोग करेंगे. और मनीष जी जैसा कि कह ही रहे हैं कि पिछले 3 दशक का तजुर्बा ये कहता है कि ये लेवल आपको आता हुआ दिख सकता है। एसेट प्राइस इन्फ्लेशन है, लिक्विडिटी का ज़ोर है, और हम लोगों ने ये हमेशा देखा है कि बुल मार्केट चलता है लिक्विडिटी पर।
Recording in progress.
मनीष जी, एक आध आखिरी प्रश्न ये है कि हमारी तरफ से तो लिक्विडिटी बहुत बढ़ रही है। सिप्स आप देख ही रहे हैं किस तरीके से जानदार तरीके से काम कर रहे हैं, ऊपर से सोने पे सुहागा रिज़र्व बैंक ऑफ इंडिया ने लिक्विडिटी इंजेक्ट कर दी। अब मेरे को ये बताइए कि हमारे जो विदेशी मित्र हैं उनको खुश करने के लिए क्या किया जाए। हर तरीके की दौड़ लगा ली, लेकिन उनकी नेट सेलिंग रुकी नहीं।
सर देखिए, लास्ट 2 साल के कंपैरिजन में तो बेटर है सिचुएशन। और एक चीज आप मान के चलिए, अगर यूएस डॉलर डेप्रिशिएट करता है तो वो डी डॉलराइजेशन ऑफ एसेट क्लास होगा, तो वो इमर्जिंग मार्केट की तरफ डेफिनेटली आएंगे। देखिए, ग्लोबल जीडीपी ग्रोथ अगर 2.3% और इंडिया 6.5% में ग्रो कर रहा है, तो 2.5 गुना ग्लोबल जीडीपी ग्रोथ में अगर यूएस डॉलर एक करेंसी के रूप में गिरता है, तो एसेट जो है वो डॉलर से मूव आउट करके दूसरे एसेट क्लासेस में जाएंगे। एंड डेफिनेटली इमर्जिंग मार्केट्स का एक स्पेस रहेगा जिसमें इंडिया एक बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट प्ले करता है। एज दे सेम मार्केट्स क्लाइंब अ वॉल ऑफ वरी, तो अभी जितनी भी मुश्किलें अगर मार्केट इनको क्लाइंब करता है, और अगर हमारी रुपी स्टेबल रहती है, क्योंकि लास्ट 2-3 साल में अगर सेलिंग देखने को मिली है, दैट इज मोर ऑन अकाउंट ऑफ द इंडियन करेंसी depreciating very rapidly. Indian currency was overvalued, and they were allowed to remain overvalued for quite some time. And after that, it has, their selling has stopped when rupee has found its true level. So from this point of view, I think de-dollarization के कारण एक उनका फ्लोज जो अभी तक रुका हुआ था, वो ऑगमेंट होने की पूरी गुंजाइश है।
मनीष जी, जाते जाते कुछ टिप्पणी अगर आप करें, 2 सेक्टर्स जिस पर अक्सर आजकल चर्चा होनी बंद हो गई, फार्मा और एफएमसीजी। इस तरीके से जो बिल्कुल ही मतलब बाज़ार नाराज़ सा बैठा है इन दोनों से, आपके अपने एमके के पोर्टफोलियो में क्लाइंट्स के बिहाफ पर आप क्या यहाँ पर किसी तरीके से निवेशित हैं या इससे दूर बैठे हुए हैं?
नहीं, बिल्कुल इन्वेस्टेड है शैलेंद्र जी। सीडीएमओ एज अ प्ले तो हम बहुत हेविली इन्वेस्टेड है। और दूसरा जो एक आता हुआ अपॉर्चुनिटी, बहुत बड़ा अपॉर्चुनिटी दिख रहा है, वो है GLP-1 आपकी वो वेट लॉस ड्रग्स वाली जो ऑफ पेटेंट हो रही है, फिस्कल 27 में ऑफ पेटेंट हो जाएंगी। जो एलाई लिली की है ड्रग ओजेम्पिक या नोवो नॉर्डिस्क की जो मंजारो, और वो ऑफ पेटेंट हो जाएंगी, तो ये $100 बिलियन की अपॉर्चुनिटी क्रिएट होगी। तो जितने भी एपीआई प्लेयर्स हैं या फॉर्मुलेशन प्लेयर्स हैं जो इस सेगमेंट को केटर कर रहे हैं, उसमें एक फ्रंट लोडेड अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलेगी। तो ये सेगमेंट को देख रहे हैं और सीडीएमओ को देख रहे हैं। और जो दूसरा आपने कौन सा सेक्टर कहा था? एफएमसीजी में देखिए, जो एक बहुत विशेष जानने वाली ये बात है कि जो एफएमसीजी कंपनीज सिर्फ रूरल को केटर करती है, और उसमें तो बेसिकली जो रूरल इकोनॉमी टर्न कर रहा है उस पर एक बेनिफिट मिलेगा। पर कहने वाली ये बात है कि एफएमसीजी कंपनीज को अर्बन में डायरेक्ट टू कंज्यूमर सेगमेंट से काफी मुश्किलों का सामना करना पड़ रहा है, कंपटीशन बढ़ गया। सो ये थोड़ा मिक्स्ड बैग रहेगा ग्रोथ वर्सेस वैल्यूएशन का। ओवरऑल बेसिस पर अभी भी रिस्क इज टू रिवॉर्ड, चूंकि मैक्रोस फेवरेबल हो रहे हैं। अगर हमारी मॉनसून ठीक ठाक रही और रूरल इकोनॉमी टर्न करी है, तो एफएमसीजी सेगमेंट को भी एक बूस्ट जरूर मिलेगा, पर वैल्यूएशन यहाँ पर फुल है। सो इट्स बेसिकली ग्रोथ वर्सेस वैल्यूएशन, पिक एंड चूज का मामला रहेगा आपके एफएमसीजी स्पेस।
चलिए मनीष जी, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। बड़ा अच्छा लगा, बड़े दिनों बाद वार्तालाप हुई और बहुत अच्छी तरीके से आपने समझाया एसेट प्राइस इन्फ्लेशन, और 25 को 12.5 से गुना कीजिए तो आपको निफ्टी की वैल्यू मिल जाएगी। धन्यवाद, बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया आपका, और मैं उम्मीद करता हूँ कि बहुत शानदार तरीके से आपके सारे पोर्टफोलियोज आउट परफॉर्म करेंगे।
थैंक यू सर।
With that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll call it a day. This was Manish Sonthalia, CIO and Director at Emkay Investment Managers. He feels he is very bullish. Firstly, he feels that with front-loaded equity and rate cuts, you will see asset price inflation coming into many sectors such as NBFCs, PSU banks, real estate, capital market stocks, travel, hotels and QSR, to name a few. He is also very bullish on the prospects of precious metals, silver more than gold, but believes that about 10 to 15% of allocations of the overall portfolio should be for these two metals. As also the fact that bond markets will rally, that is fairly obvious because you have a rate cut and that will push bond prices higher. Crude oil, he says that it is unlikely to cross beyond $80 a barrel given that global growth is slowing. So, overall a very positive picture as far as Indian equities are concerned, and the fact that in this global crisis because of the Mid East war and slowdowns, you see India as a safe haven for equity assets. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the conversation as much as I did. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to you on Business Today